the Mayor of Kigali City, honorable members of Parliament, both chambers, Senate and the Chamber of Deputies, representatives of security organs, Army, the police, and the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, senior representatives of government, different public institutions and government, dear leaders of private sector and civil society organizations here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I welcome you to the launch of Rwanda Governance Board 6th edition. I'm called Edward Kalisa. I'm the Secretary General for Rwanda Governance Board, and I will be your MC for this event. I take this opportunity on behalf of RGB. I know you'll be welcomed in another form, but I also would like to welcome you once again, and also to thank you for responding to our invitation to attend this event. Honorable Minister and our guest of honor, we are here to witness the launch of the Rwanda Governance Board, Rwanda Governance Scorecard for the 6th time. As a country, we have chosen to be accountable to ourselves, and one of the tools we use to hold ourselves accountable is this one, RGS, which assesses the state of governance in Rwanda, looking at a number of areas that will be presented shortly. Because I don't want to preempt the presentations that are coming next, I'll just run through the program, and I'll leave the rest for to the presenters. Coming up next, we'll hear welcome remarks and a brief introduction of RGS by the Deputy CEO of Rwanda Governance Board, Dr. Nibishaka Emmanuel. After his remarks, we'll get a presentation from, we'll follow the presentation from the CEO of Rwanda Governance Board, Dr. Kayitesi Yusta. This is the findings of RGS 6th edition. After the presentation of the findings, we'll have a panel discussion to make a few highlights on the findings, and this will be moderated by my colleague, Fiona Mbabazi. Fiona, where are you? Fiona Mbabazi is there, so she will take us through the discussions of the panel. After the panel discussion, we'll have the real thing, which is the launch of Rwanda Governance Scorecard that will be led by our guest of honor, Honorable Minister Wize Judith. We'll end the program with a group photo. And later, when the time comes, I'll let you know how we are going to conduct this exercise. Honorable Minister and our guest of honor, I now take this opportunity to invite the Deputy CEO of RGB to give his welcome remarks and a brief introduction of Rwanda Governance Scorecard. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, the President of Office, Honorable Minister for Cabinet Affairs, distinguished participants, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Good morning. It seems you are feeling cold. It's a cold morning. So the Master of Ceremony said, My name is Emmanuel Nibishaka. I am the Deputy CEO of RGB. He said I am to introduce RGS 6th edition, but I think it's also an opportunity for me, maybe, to steal the show and introduce myself, because my face might not look familiar to some of you, because I am quite a few months, if not few days old at RGB. So if you bump me in the corner, just recognize my face as the Deputy CEO. So I am very honored and humbled to welcome you. All of you have dedicated your valuable time to join us in this very important event to officially launch the Rwanda Governance Scorecard 6th edition. And allow me, Honorable Minister, to welcome everyone in their respective roles and the protocol. We are pleased to be with you, Honorable Minister, as our guest to honor. If you can stand and greet the audience. Honorable, where are you? Thank you very much, Honorable. I recognize also the Minister for Cabinet Affairs. If you can stand also, Honorable Minister. We are honored also to be with our dear Chief Executive Officer. I think you all know her. The Mayor of Kigali City, the Mayor of the City of Kigali. We are also with some Member of Parliament. Where are they? I need to see them. Welcome. We are honored to be with a representative from the security organs, both the army and the police. You can stand if you wish, sir. But your uniforms, yeah. We are also with some member of the judiciary. I see, it's okay. And we also have different heads of different public institutions and agencies. And allow me also to highly appreciate the presence of the members of diplomatic corps, including ambassadors, high commissioners, and other diplomats, development partners, and UNDP resident representative. Stephen, can you greet the audience? Allow me also to recognize our friends from the African Union peer review mechanism. Where are you? Yes, thank you. We are also pleased to be together with representatives of political organizations, civil society organizations, leaders of faith-based organizations, members of academia and research institutions, members of the private sector, members of the youth representatives and the media. And I hope I have introduced all. Yes. So, distinguished participants, all protocol observed, your turn-up today reflects the greatest interest you have in this event, and more particularly to the government of Rwanda's commitment to continuously self-assess our performance and its impact on the life of our population. One of the core mandates of RGB is to conduct evidence-based research to inform policy making. It is in this context that RGB publishes annually the Rwanda Governance Scorecard, which is a national index assessing the state of governance in Rwanda. The idea behind creating the Rwanda Governance Scorecard is linked to the governance model chosen by the government of Rwanda, founded on the principles of citizen-centered governance, accountability, inclusiveness, consensus, and dialogue. RGB is making use that all these governance values are regularly assessed through this national index. RGS is also serving as a self-evaluation tool adopted in the framework of the African peer review mechanism to provide evidence-based research to serve for policy formulation, at the same time serving as a tool of accountability across sectors and institutions. It is also a tool in assessing the implementation of national, regional, and global agenda, such as Vision 2020, now Vision 2050 and NST1, Africa Agenda 2063, and the Global Agenda 2030, known as SDGs. The RGS is one of the core mechanisms used in the monitoring of the implementation of these programs. The same tool is also extending the scope of its monitoring because it monitors the implementation process of regional and global agenda, including the one I cited above, especially the SDG 2030 on Goal 16, which is dealing with peace, justice, and strong institutions. It is important probably to highlight that 60% of the 10 targets of the SDGs Goal 16 are captured and assessed through the Rwanda Governance Scorecard. That is the reason why the production of Rwanda Governance Scorecard requires contribution from various institutions and partners. Those are public institutions, private sector, civil society, faith-based organizations, development partners, and citizens. RGS 6th edition we are launching today is showing the current status of governance in Rwanda and highlights good and least performing pillars and indicators in comparison with previous editions. As per previous editions, the current RGS also highlighted the policy recommendations and monitor the status of their implementation by concerned institutions. The 6th edition also used data from both primary and secondary sources collected in 2017, 2018, and 2019. As in the previous editions, the greatest strength of the Rwanda Governance Scorecard is its use of multiple sources of data to construct pillars, indicators, and variables based on international frameworks, international indices, and homegrown indicators. It measures Rwanda's governance performance based on 8 pillars, namely the rule of law, political rights and civil liberties, participation and inclusiveness, safety and security, investing in human and social development, control of corruption, transparency and accountability, quality of service delivery, and economic and corporate governance. These pillars are composed of 36 indicators and 130 variables, down from 157 in the previous edition, to accommodate major improvement made on some pillars. Without taking long, my short remarks were just meant to welcome you and entice your appetite, not only to follow the presentation of the findings of the RGS that will be presented shortly by the CEO, but also to enjoy the discussions and other remarks that will be delivered at this memorable event. So I take this opportunity to thank you all for honoring our invitation, and we are looking forward to receiving your comments and using this report as an informative document on the state of governance in Rwanda. The Rwanda Governance Board is committed to regularly and timely produce this report and disseminate it to our stakeholders to inform policy formulation. Thank you very much, Murakoze.
Thank you very much, Deputy CEO, for the remarks and for the brief introduction of RGS and its essence. I now take this opportunity to invite the CEO of Rwanda Governance Board to share the findings of Rwanda Scorecard 6th edition with us. You're welcome.
Thank you, DCO, for the generous introduction of the participants. Honorable Minister, Madam Judith Owizeye, our guest of honor, honorable ministers here present, the resident representative of the UN, of the UNDP, our dear partner, the Lord Mayor of the City of Kigali, Excellencies, High Commissioners and Ambassadors, representatives of other diplomats in the room, our development partners, leaders in the academia, the civil society, the faith-based organizations, and leaders in the private sector here present, the youth organization leaders, and in particular students of the universities around. A good morning to all of you. As my colleagues said, it's a great honor to have you today as we speak about a very important tool, the Rwanda Governance Scorecard, and a tool that comes from the political choices of this country, the choice to hold ourselves accountable in order to measure whether our thinking big is progressing as desired as a country, but also to be transparent vis-a-vis what we do in different sectors. Now, before I present the results, I really want to start by thanking all of those that help us generate this data, because this is a consolidation of different data. And when we do the analysis and put it together, we do it very well because you give us the most updated data that we need in order to do the analysis that we have. As mentioned by the Deputy CEO, the Rwanda Governance Scorecard is built on 8 pillars. It has 36 indicators and 130 variables. And as I mentioned earlier, the sources of data that I won't repeat a lot because the Deputy CEO mentioned, indeed come from different international indices, from different international frameworks, and from Rwanda's specific indicators. The particularity, as earlier mentioned, is also we collect data from citizens through the Citizen Report Card, and therefore the CRC also represents the voice of this. I mean, the RGS also represents the voice of the citizens. I want to really appreciate different members of the civil society that also generate data that we use in the analysis of the status of governance in this country. The ranking that appears there clearly shows all the results you're going to see are going to be in either of the 4 colors, because that's the lines of our scorecard. Green being the best performing color, yellow being the color that is between 60 and 70 and 79, and then amber and red coming at the end of the scorecard at the lowest level. Now, as I said, we assess 8 pillars, and the overall performance of the 6th edition shows that safety and security still leads in this particular edition at 94.29, and is the first pillar that leads 85.17% is the performance of the political rights and civil liberties pillar. As we progress, we'll see the indicators under these pillars. The rule of law stands at 84.70, and control of corruption, transparency, and accountability also is at 84.28%. What you recognize is that 4 of the 8 pillars are above 80 in terms of scoring. The economic and corporate governance pillar is at 76.43%, and it's at the 5th position. And participation and inclusion is at 73%. I should mention that this particular pillar is mostly, the biggest source of data is the Citizen Report Card, which is the perception of the citizens in reality, but there are more other data that other sources that we use irrespective of the predominance of the CRC. The quality of service delivery stands at 70 and is the 7th pillar, and investing in human and social development is the last pillar at 68.53%, and is the only score that the only pillar that scores below 70. Now I'm going to go through the pillars one pillar per time. The rule of law that I mentioned, we assess the performance of the judiciary, which stands at 88.34%. We assess the use of ICT in the justice services. This year we were able to find that people get the criminal record directly online, which is a great improvement. But they are also, the whole judiciary is really built on using ICT in order to enable service delivery in that sector. And the sector is at 80.23%. The performance of the prosecution stands at 91.81%. And the performance of the legislature, which is also in the legal making process, we put it in the whole process of the rule of law because it's involved in the making of the law process, is at 91.44%. Access to justice has 71.70%, and in the discussion we'll engage why that exactly appears like that. The political rights and civil liberties assesses democratic rights and freedoms at 84.25%. The respect for human rights and core international conventions is at 86.41%. I think we are aware that the Human Rights Commission achieved a particular grade this past year, and those things impact actually the performance and the view of the performance of particular pillars. The vibrance of non-state actors in policy formulation improved greatly this year, is at 74.30%, but was quite lower in the previous year. Access to public information is at 86.83%. Part of the sources of data that comes in through this is the Rwanda Media Barometer that we do, and other assessments that have been conducted in the areas of the media locally, and then political organizations' operations is at 94.8%, and that comes without surprise that all political parties now find space in the lower chamber of the parliament, and that reflects the performance when we are assessing the performance in political rights and civil liberties. So the pillar stands at 85.17%. Participation and inclusion looks at citizen participation, which stands at 72.68%, decentralization, which stands at 64.62%, participation of non-state actors that I already mentioned partly, which is 70.77%, gender equality in leadership, which stands at 75.43%. We were fortunate that the Gender Monitoring Office actually issued a gender profile that was able to inform us as a source of data. And then one of the core choices that this country has chosen as a means of participation is power sharing. It is a constitutional imperative that power sharing in terms of representation in different areas is a priority, is a governance priority in this country, and it stands at 81.50%. Safety and security has been a leading pillar for the last 6 editions, and it has sustained the leadership in terms of the assessments. Maintaining security stands at 91.96%. Reconciliation, social cohesion, and unity. You will understand that given the priority and the importance of reconciliation, social cohesion, and unity as one of our core strategic choices, which is staying together, is considered as a matter of safety and security. And this stands at 93.99%, a data that is also generated from the reconciliation barometer that is issued by the National Unity and Reconciliation Commission. National security generally stands at 99.40%, and this is not different from many of the international indexes that have qualified Rwanda as one of the safest places to be in. And then personal and property security is at 91.82%. Investing in human and social development is the least performing pillar at 68.53%. I should already mention that part of that reflects what we are assessing. We are assessing education generally at 66.71%. We are assessing health at 78.92%. We are assessing social protection, and it stands at 61.21%. And climate change and environmental resilience is at 67.26%. Now, when we looked at this particular pillar, we adjusted very few things, but depending on the priorities that this country has set. In the education sector, we went beyond assessing access, which was the biggest element that we assessed in the previous editions, but it also included elements that reflect quality of education and the character of education that we are pursuing in order to achieve a knowledge-based economy that Rwanda is pursuing. Climate change, we've been engaging with REMA and other institutions and the Ministry of Environment to really reflect the key elements that we need to assess in the progress of climate change. But you are aware of the kind of geographical area that we have as a country. So there are many things that have been achieved very greatly, but there are also things that are in the process to enhance Rwanda's commitment to a clean environment. Now, the issues that I was highlighting in investing in human and social development are reflected mainly on the rate of net enrollment in the education sector, that stands at 58.21%. The dropout rate that stands at 33.56%. The school feeding program, which is a great initiative, but the CRC reflects that we can improve on that. It stands at 44.3%. And the quality of education that stands at 53.60%. In the health sector, the factor that really reduced this, the great performance was the stunting rate at the time of the assessment that stood at 41.36%, and the number of health posts in the cells. Now, you are aware that Rwanda has constructed health posts mostly to the extent of the sector level. But of course, when people have access, their demand grows. And therefore, there is more demand of having health posts at the cell level. And when we were doing the assessment, they stood at 32.82% of what should be like. Now, on inclusive education for people with disability, and we have intentionally and consciously engaged on that element of inclusion through the CRC, through different assessments that we are doing in the spirit of Leave None Behind. And we found that in the education sector, inclusive education for people with disabilities still stood at 39.45%. We are in the process, because when we get these kind of results, sometimes we choose to go deeper and do a specific assessment. So as Rwanda Governance Board, in partnership of the other people that are in charge with people with disabilities, we are doing a deep analysis, especially in the areas of education, local government administration, and health for service delivery, especially for people with disability. But in the education sector, the 39.45% has also provoked us to enter into a deeper analysis, and we will soon actually share the findings. And then resilience to climate change. We are aware of how beautiful Rwanda can be, but then we know that that beauty of the mountains comes with its own challenges. And therefore, climate change and pursuing our resilience is a consistent pursuit. We stand now at 40.28%. Policy are being put in place, and I think the biggest part is going to be on our capacity to be ready to deal with certain things that happen in the areas of climate change that we all see as priorities at this stage. On the control of corruption, transparency and accountability, and those of you, I'm sure you all have books, incidences of corruption. Now, don't think, we are not reporting about how many people have experienced incidences of corruption, but we are also assessing how many people we are actually assessing how many people have said that there is the absence of instances of corruption. So read that not from a negative perspective, rather from a positive perspective. 82.83% affirms the absence of incidences of corruption. The control corruption is 77.1%, and I'm going to really elaborate a little bit on what that means later when we are in the engagement, because that also means different assessments of who is in the journeys of controlling corruption. How much are people appreciating the efforts that are being done by different institutions in combating and controlling corruption? And then accountability stands at 86.9%, and transparency stands at 90.29%. Now, quality of service delivery is still a sector that we all have to find out how to best improve. There's a lot of efforts that happen, but we find that service delivery in the governance and justice sector is at 79.0%. Service delivery in the social cluster is at 68.52%. Service delivery in the private sector is at 71.77%, and service delivery in the economic cluster is at 62.82%. Now, this also is mostly generated from the citizen report card and how the citizens assess the different sectors of service delivery, but also how we as the institution that assesses the performance of institutions in the areas of service delivery find their performance. Economic and corporate governance stands at 76.43%. Microeconomic indicators stand at 75.61%. Maybe later in the engagement, my colleague, Dr. Felicier, the economist of the institution, will engage and elaborate a little bit more. Foreign trade and industrialization stands at 60.21%. Business environment promotion stands at 87.92%. That is also influenced on how Rwanda is ranked in different places as well. And SMEs and private sector promotion stands at 81.83%. And corporate governance stands at 76.56%. Now, the corporate governance element, the shareholders' governance is really doing very well. But the thing that brings it at 76.56% is this time, by the use of the gender profiling, we were able to also highlight the gender parity existence in the private sector. And therefore, we realize that the private sector is still wanting when it comes to the existence of women in the levels of decision making. There is going to be a little bit more gender parity at a greater level, but when you come at the other organs that are in between there from the district and other places, the private sector still lacks a little bit in terms of gender equality or gender inclusion, minimally, I should say. Now, the most improving indicators, remember I said we are built as pillars, indicators, and variables. The most improving indicators are political organization operations. Through the assessment of this year, we realized that it stands at 17.21%. The performance of the judiciary is at 9.86%. The private sector and SMEs promotion is at 8.25%, and the vibrance of the non-state actors in policy formulation is at 6.97% in terms of improvement, and the performance of the legislature is at 6.13%. Now, most improving variables, because we went even at that, I think my eyes are disappointing me. We speak of the percentage of citizens, well, I move here, the percentage of citizens with their participation in MHIGO, so the satisfaction of the percentage of citizens in their participation of MHIGO, it increased at 15%, and you are aware that there has been a lot of opportunities for citizen participation through Inteko z'Abaturage, but also the intentional engagement for planning and participation. I should appreciate that both the Ministry of Local Government and the civil society have really worked so hard to have the participation of citizens in that regard. Also, the percentage of citizen participation in their, the satisfaction of citizen participation in decision making increased at 18%, and the vibrance of non-state actors in policy formulation. When we had the last edition of the RGS, the 5th edition, the vibrance of non-state actors, in particular the academia, was extremely low. And this year, the increase was quite tremendous to 23.20%. There were a lot of engagements, and I remember last year we had also representatives on the panel from the academia who made commitments that they are going to improve in that regard. 27.40%, the independence of the parliament, and the most improved variable was 36.37% for political organization representative in the parliament, because that actually, I should say, hit the ceiling. Now, as I move towards concluding this presentation, we have also tried to put together the trend performance of the pillars over the 6 editions. The rule of law, which is blue, you can see that it improved from 67.71% in the first time of assessment, and now stands at 84.71%. It's actually been a very consistently most improving pillar in particular. Participation and inclusion has also been within the same range for quite a period of time, with a bit of a decrease, but has been in the same range. Political rights and civil liberties has also grown tremendously from 71.43 and has had a consistent raise, and now stands at 85.17 for the past 6 now assessments. Safety and security has consistently, safety and security has consistently as well maintained the lead. It was the first pillar, it has always been the first pillar since the assessment, and even when actually the consistency is, because in the Rwanda Governance Scorecard we use different sources of data, there is a lot of consistency of the performance of this pillar with the citizen report card, because it's the same range, and we don't use the performance, the results of the citizen report card only. We put together the citizen report card, but mostly other sources, including international indexes that show that. The economic and corporate governance, we have only assessed it less times. This is the 5th time, and the progress also seems to be having its particular consistency, even with a very particular way of performance. The quality of service delivery has not grown to the extent that we wish it to grow. And I'm saying this because we are all in the process of finding out what we need to fix. We are working with different stakeholders. We find mindset at the core of of the improvements of this sector, but we raise this because we want all of you to be partners with engaging those of us who produce this in this sector. Now, interestingly, when you look at the national contribution, the service sector is one of the biggest contributor to national development. The story it tells is that if we could improve tremendously in this sector, we could highly improve the development of our country by just improving the mindsets and the approaches of us. I should say that it is one sector, one pillar that requires not very big investments, but it is also a pillar that requires a lot of human investment. And I should say that it has a great relationship with the human development aspect of it. And therefore, we should look at the education and the environment that we create, but also the perceptions and the people we engage with in terms of improving the quality of service delivery. The control of corruption, transparency, and accountability. And for reference, you will see at the end of the book that you have before you, we have been able to compile at least 5 areas that we find very crucial, the performance of Rwanda in international indexes. So, control of corruption, transparency, and accountability is one of those key highlights that we put there to resonate with what we see as the performance at the national level, but also what Rwanda's performance across the years. We've taken 3 last years, so depending on when the last reports were issued, we have put the opportunity for you to look at how other people have assessed Rwanda in those 5 key areas, including the control of corruption, transparency, and accountability. And I should mention that apart from what you see as a consistent way of growth, there has also been a very stable way in the international indexes. If you look at the corruption perception index that you will see at the end of the book, it shows the consistency of Rwanda's performance in that particular index. And as I already said, investing in human and social development has had its ways. I should interpret what the numbers mean though. At the beginning, the biggest issues were access. When we were delivering on the Millennium Development Goals, which Rwanda performed very well, access was really invested in. And you will see that the performance then was quite much better than what we have today. And as I mentioned earlier, the difference is informed by what we have added that is part of the government developmental priorities in this sector, and that has partly influenced actually what you see as the performance. But also it's an area that we definitely need great investment and great improvement, and I know at a policy level there are things that are in the process of happening. Now, for every RGS, we end with recommendations. And this RGS is not different from that. Now, I should mention that our recommendations are 2-tiered. We have ongoing recommendations. In the 2016 RGS, because it also happened at the same time when we had started our new national development agenda, we were in the process of planning for the National Strategy for Transformation. So some of the recommendations that happened that year and the year that followed were multi-year recommendations. So you will see what we call ongoing recommendations and new recommendations. In the book, have given us updates of how they are performing. And therefore, the ongoing recommendations, we maintain them because they have a multi-year facet, and we'll continue to assess them. So one of the continuing recommendations is to increase the savings rate as per national transformation strategy. There are very clear strategies in the national transformation strategy. in terms of saving rates, which increases and boosts our economy. And we see that this, even though we have introduced different initiatives and saving schemes, it's important that we continue strengthening this in terms of implementation in order to have the economic impact that the saving schemes does. Also, part of the ongoing recommendation is to increase citizen participation in development processes, community transformation, and accountability. When the Deputy CEO was introducing, he mentioned that we assess governance from a central angle that this country has chosen, which is being citizen-centric. And therefore, we cannot, as a governance institution, and in the process of assessing governance, we see that there is a great need to continuously, even when there was a rise, and this has a connection, because when we make these recommendations, also institutions try to go and improve in terms of implementation. So even though there was a rise in terms of increasing citizen participation, that is the mainstream that we fetch from. We will continue and must continue to have a citizen-centered and participation in the interest of community transformation and accountability. We have introduced new policy recommendations. And of course, you saw that the pillar that concerns human development has its own issues. So we have recommended to ensure quality of education to support the attainment of a knowledge-based economy. We have a very clear strategy as a country. We have chosen to pursue a knowledge-based economy, and therefore we find that ensuring quality of education is the main tool that will be used for us to attain the knowledge-based economy that we are pursuing. The other new policy recommendation is to fast-track the use of technology in service delivery for efficiency and effectiveness. I should mention that, especially in our e-procurement processes, e-recruitment processes, you can see that the opportunities for corruption has greatly diminished because of the transparent character of our online approaches. But remember also that under the National Strategy for Transformation, the country has chosen deliberately that public services are going to be online at 100%. So that pursuit of wanting to have public service delivery online requires that we fast-track the use of technology in service delivery for efficiency and effectiveness. As I mentioned earlier, we've worked also with different institutions, and we have actually introduced an e-governance indicator that is going to be issued soon, because it gives us an opportunity to also see in that particular area how much we are progressing towards this commitment on a yearly basis. To improve also, one of the other recommendation is to improve public finance management in order to enhance and achieve transparency and accountability in the use of resources. And when you read Rwanda's definition of governance, it is accountability, transparency, and efficiency in using scarce resources. I love both the word efficiency and scarce. I think scarceness is not just the absence, but it's a means also of being conscious on delivering every coin to its purpose. And therefore, it's important that to improve public finance management in order to achieve transparency and accountability in the use of our resources is not only a recommendation for us, but also brings us back to our core definition of governance in this country. Rwanda has adopted a beautiful policy. We have invited many of you for the Africa Day of Journalism, and we've encouraged you to dress something made in Rwanda. It has to have something made in Rwanda on it. And this is part of, because it's going also to happen on a Friday. If we issued this governance scorecard on this Friday, we were going to recommend that you wear something made in Rwanda. But to promote the implementation of Made in Rwanda is core for us because it helps to reduce a trade imbalance. So one of the core recommendations is this. I know there has been a soft recommendation that on Fridays we try to find somebody, we try to wear something that is particularly made in Rwanda, but that soft recommendation makes a difference in everyone who produces that in the chain of production. And that is why we bring this as a central recommendation as well. We have also a recommendation in the area of agriculture and livestock to enhance coordination and quality of agriculture and livestock value chain. Now, you know, the drivers, one of the drivers of growth for this country is agriculture and livestock. And therefore, enhancing coordination and the quality of livestock value chain is core, because we are realizing that there has been a lot of effort in the production part of it. And past the production part of it, production will stay consistent if the whole value chain system is effective. When we have sufficient products, it becomes a discouraging tool the next year if the producers do not find the right markets for those products. And therefore, the whole value chain in terms of inputs, in terms of outputs, but also in terms of finding the market and improving the quality of the process is an area where that will strongly boost the agriculture sector. In the citizen report card, although we are concentrating on the Rwanda governance scorecard, the agriculture sector is still performing poorly in terms of appreciation. But I should mention that we found that it is the most improved for the last year. And it has been a bit of that sense of coordination that was really concentrated in terms of delivery last year, but also the introduction of policies that reflect the priorities. Now, in conclusion, overall, this 6th edition of the Rwanda Governance Scorecard clearly shows that Rwanda is making recommendable strides towards building and sustaining a social democratic developmental state, because this is the kind of state that we are moving to, and this is what we are developing this country to. Now, having said that, you have the book at your disposal. Today is just the introduction of the book. We really hope you're going to find time and engage with the book. We appreciate constructive criticism. We also appreciate action where it is demanded. And on this note, I want to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, CEO, for the very informative presentation. I believe that the presentation of the findings of RGS 6th edition has provided some insights on the findings, but I also do believe that it may have generated a desire to know more. I'm not going to tell you that more. I'm not going to give you that more, but I will temporarily hand over to my colleague, Fiona Mbabazi. Fiona, are you here? Yeah, thank you. To tell us how we are going to know.
Kaitesi to join our panel.